on,
that
Eugene.
Okay, our issue.
There we go.
News and
Sting. Brought to you by Eugene Matthews.
This is almost embarrassing. Okay, so Woolworths. Can I use the word? I'll use it anyway. Woolworths is in the cock. They placed an ad for a vacancy. And
why are
I'm
you
going
showing
to-
a vacancy?
I'm vacant.
the story got
Spiritual dancing, a vacancy.
liturgical, okay? And it got some people
A little hot
quite
under the...
angry. I will break it down for you. The ad said white people need not apply. This is a BEE post. What do you mean? It's
It's al weer gekweet soos hy.
Okay. And the thing was, it went hysterical on Twitter. I mean, people were like, Woolworths is racist. Die wit mense het almal gesê, ek gaan nooit weer nie. Die wit mense, nie Steve Hofmeyer. Said, I'm never shopping. He threw his Woolworths
But
cart in the Yukskei River.
Isn't Steve Hofmeyer the whitest man in South Africa?
Although Steve Hofmeyer has said that he wouldn't have minded being coloured, we said no thanks. But so that's the reality. People went screaming crazy. It went all over the social media.
Boycott Woolworths.
They asked people to boycott Woolworths.
Hashtag.
This is the beauty of it from my point of view. I have a friend on BBM, white guy, works for Woolworths.
Yeah.
He sent me a broadcast message to say, don't shop at Woolworths for the next 10 days because Woolworths is racist, blah, 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 blah. I'm like, I don't even shop at Woolworths. I can't afford these things.
That was the thing I
Hello.
said. There was the whole section of the Cape Flats who was already boycotting Woolworths because economically that's what they do. But the interesting thing for me around this is, what happening here? What happening here? We are blaming, or not we are, those people who are calling for a boycott of Woolworths, they're being incorrect, I believe. Because what Woolworths is doing is they just following the law. And the law says that BEE, AA, EE, economic empowerment, black economic empowerment, affirmative action, all that stuff, means that all companies have to have a certain quota. They have to have a certain amount of South Africans of different
Creeds.
Colours.
must be colors, they must have that in their employ. And so Woolworths is being straight up and they're saying, come here is the job, come get the job. So my question is, would people rather have said Woolworths didn't say, well, this is specifically for African blacks, if they just advertise the job and Jay Moss, you go and make copies of your CVs and you go there and you go and sit and wait and you get interviewed all to know that you were never going to actually get that job.
Maybe that taxi fare that you took to the interview was
You
your
know
last.
what I'm saying? You know what I'm
You
saying?
know? That
So
was my
To
time.
go to the internet cafe and email your CV and all those stuff, well, it costs money.
And the thing is that your objection should not be with Woolworths. It should then be with the law. And if you object to the law that is trying to address a need to redress, you have to think really, really carefully about that. That your government, our government, has decided that it has to be legally enforced because you know this. You know this, that when affirmative action came in, people just put unqualified people into positions just to kind of say, well, no, look, we have a black here. Yes, I'm black, even though he knows nothing. I know. I personally was approached by somebody who says, I have a transport company. You can be on our board. And I said, but I'm not in transport. And they said, that's nothing. We just need representation. I said, no. You're supposed to go find people within the transport industry because it has to transform. The reality is we still live in a country where government has to legally enforce it. Businesses aren't coming forward and saying, let's redress, let's make a point of pushing this, that people of color have for many years been disadvantaged and we are going to do something about addressing that. Government had to make it law and then there were still people who weren't following that law. So now you're basically saying, and the reality is if you go onto the social and the online media, black people are saying, well, I'm going to go shop at Woolworths now. I never used to shop there before. Because that is the truth about it. Redress needs to happen. And if you don't agree with it, Woolworths are the wrong people to attack. You should be attacking your government.
Pick me.
Yes, sir.
So Woolworths has an image that is about up here. So let's find another place that has an image about here. Say Pep had to say whites need
I think very highly of Pep.
or ShopRite
Discom.
or Discom, Town
even
Talk,
though
whatever. A shop with an image that's not as up there as Woolworths. If they had to say white people need not apply, would the white people still have made, or the people who protested, would they still have made so much noise?
We wonder. And here's the other thing, because people just went hysterical and then started saying, yeah, Woolworths don't employ white people. When last have you seen white people employed in Woolworths? And so I really thought, okay, now in town, it's net kleerlinge and swart and Indians, Cavendish, so I was like a bit, ooh. And then someone said to me, try Tiger Valley. So I said, oh. But, and here's the other point. If you look at the structure of Woolworths, I challenge you to go and look at the management structure at Woolworths head office. No, I'm just putting it out there.
I have a comment here from the Heather Diane Gray. She says it's racism in reverse.
Jean-Pierre says, dis nie net Woolies, daar's nog ander maatskappye wat ook net swartes aanneem, wat ook nou nie wites aanneem nie, en ook nie kleerlinge nie. Nou wat moet die anders in die land, dan moet ons nie werkie, maak jou eie besigheid. Moet ons nie salaris verdien nie. My man soek na vir 'n jaar en 8 maande werk. Hy kry nie, dit is totale shit. And you know, it's a very real concern, and you understand the emotional response of white people to this whole thing, because you have heard this for so long. People say, well, I'm looking for work, I can't find work, because people basically are saying to me, you are white, you can't get this job. And not just white people, there are colored people who have also experienced this. Again, for me, part of that whole thing is that you have to upskill, and our taxi lawyer, Tav Mashonga, is always talking about this. He says, South Africans, you don't know your rights. You just don't know your rights. You need to upskill yourself about what your rights are. And BEE and affirmative action is supposed to be in the favor of black, colored, women, all the you know, so white women should not be being turned away because of the color of their skin. You need to inform yourself about those kinds of things. As Antonio says, this is two-sided. Government set out guidelines for BEE quota, and companies have to develop their own strategy to meet them. On the one hand, companies are urged to fight unemployment, and on the other hand, government says you must employ X% of each ethnicity. It is difficult.
Pick me.
Yes.
Okay, so BEE has been happening for a while. Is BEE ever going to end, or is the government ever going to say, okay, like in the next 5 years or so,
no more BEE?
Can we just phase that out?
This becomes another part of this complex issue, because BEE people didn't honor it correctly. So you're never seeing the results of it, and I'm not talking about what happens in government and in politics, where clearly there are a whole lot of people who are completely not qualified for the positions that they're in. But in the corporate environment, it hasn't happened enough. And until that happens, I don't think government's going to say, here's your cutoff point. So it is time for business to also develop some integrity and honor those laws. It's the laws of your country, honor them. Yeah, really. All right, we're going to the break. When we come back, we've got some incredible young people for you who are doing some extraordinary things. We'll talk about that when we come back.